Hey, everybody, welcome back to Lettermen Row. It is time for a special Christmas edition of Rapid Reaction. Happy holidays to Jeremy Birmingham. I am Austin Ward. In Ohio State, I'm sorry, I have to do it. They just got a gift under the tree. It has to be done. What happened here?
Deamonte Trayanum, the former four-star running back prospect from Akron-Hoban in Ohio, who went to Arizona State as a high school senior and played for 1 year with the Sun Devils as transferring. He entered his name in the transfer portal 2 weeks ago, and now he's heading back to Ohio and is decided on Ohio State over Michigan and a handful of others. And it's a big win for Ohio State, and it sort of validates, I think, somewhat what Ohio State thought 2 years ago, which was, this is a player they really like, a person they really like. Ryan Day was very involved in Chip's, and that's his nickname, Chip, in his recruitment, and they really had a good bond, but it was just a position fit. And I think Deamonte really believed that he was going to be a running back. That's what he wanted to play. And I think now, as you see Ohio State with the success of Steel Chambers, you see what they can do with a really twitchy athlete at that extra linebacker spot, especially in Jim Knowles' defense. I think that he sees an opportunity to fit that spot.
It's pretty fascinating how this has worked out. And you and I have both got a number of questions about, well, why doesn't Ohio State just pursue a true linebacker? Well, they've always viewed him as a linebacker and somebody who has that skill set, and the similarities between his situation and, as you mentioned, Steel Chambers. I mean, they run pretty deep here. And I think that the part, how successful Steel Chambers has been, and only Deamonte can answer this a little bit later on. Spoiler alert, he's going to be joining us on this rapid reaction, a first of its kind, on this show here, brought to you by Buyers Auto. That, you know, there's evidence of guys who can play running back and could have been really good at it, but then moving over to the other side of the football and really succeeding with a lot of the traits that Ohio State's personnel department had seen in them dating back to their high school recruitment, their initial recruitment. And I understand why guys want to try their hand, keeping the football in their hands and play running back. And the guy scored 10 touchdowns at Arizona State. He could have continued to do that if he wanted to. But maybe that next ceiling, he realized if he's going to get to the NFL level, that may be better suited at the linebacker spot. And Steel Chambers is providing some example that it is challenging, but it might not be as daunting as you think.
You know, I think this, Austin, is actually really interesting because there's been a handful of recruitments in the last few years where a player in Ohio, or that Ohio State was very closely tied to, ended up going somewhere else. And a lot of times the narrative has been, well, Ohio State liked him in this position, he wanted to play this one. And this gives us an opportunity, getting a chance to talk to Chip today, to really kind of dive into how much of that is true and how much of it is not, because I think sometimes that narrative can be overplayed. It could be a situation where he wanted to play running back. I think that does play a large role. Another part, isn't it, that Ohio State maybe didn't start really recruiting him aggressively until a little bit later than he wanted, and so there's some of that in play. But either way, the relationship with the Buckeyes was good, and this is why it's so important more than ever in the transfer portal era that these coaches maintain working and positive relationships with kids and stay involved, because you just never know anymore when things are going to circle back. And it's just interesting for a kid from Akron. Like I said, he was the number 5 ranked player in Ohio in the class of 2020. That was a class that Ohio State had Paris Johnson and Darian Henry, who's now left. I mean, that's ironically, if you look at Ohio State in the class of 2020, they only signed 3 of the top 10 players in Ohio in that class. And that's not because the Buckeyes didn't, they tried and didn't get the other guys. They just simply let a lot of those kids leave the state. And now you're starting to see maybe as they come back around. And I think it's fascinating just to watch where it goes from here, because a guy like Deamonte has such a high ceiling and the opportunity to play for Ohio State early, but also to play 3 years in Columbus and to develop closer to home. And I think that's part of what's really driving this decision for him.
Yeah, we'll see exactly how long it takes for him to make that impact for Ohio State. There's no way to know for sure. Steel Chambers, as I said, made it look pretty easy, and he had a much shorter window. He went through spring practice at running back before converting over to play linebacker for Al Washington and doing it at a really high level. Well, in this situation for Trayanum, he's going to have a full spring potentially here to learn that position, and off season to acclimate and get back, in the swing of things. He has obviously defensive experience, as you mentioned, in high school. So he played both ways, and certainly you understand why he took his shot at running back the way he did. But Ohio State doesn't have room for him in that position. This is clearly a move that's designed to bolster those silver bullets and add even more athleticism. You don't ever turn your back on that. And you look at other positions, guys that they may have kicked around. We asked about Elias Ricks all the time. Well, it didn't fit, and it wasn't. Ohio State didn't stop pursuing guys that could be a clear upgrade. And that's this when you're talking about bringing in an athlete with these skills. Clearly, Ohio State sees that as a cultural fit, having recruited him before, and an upgrade to the roster overall, or else you wouldn't make this move.
Yeah, and it's one of these situations where you see the delineation between the types of transfers there are. A guy like Jahmyr Gibbs, a running back from Georgia Tech, who ended up transferring to Alabama. Ohio State would have been more than happy to have Jahmyr Gibbs if he wanted to come in and fight that fight. But he wanted to go to Bama. There's a little less depth at running back there, and crazy as that sounds, and he's going to stay close to home. So I think the interesting thing right now is that we get an opportunity to talk to Chip and see exactly how this process is going for him and what the transfer portal was really like. So as you said, this is going to be a first time ever type of deal. So I think we should just bring him on the show.
Good idea.
All right. We'll be right back with Deamonte Trayanum.
All right. We're welcoming in live from still in Phoenix, I believe, in those Christmas PJs, Deamonte Trayanum. He's made his decision and he's coming home. What went into this process for you, and why is Ohio State now the right choice for the next step in your career?
What went into this process for me, ever since I entered my name into the transfer portal, was just finding a place that I can really be comfortable and just know the environment. I knew once upon entering the transfer portal, I didn't want to enter anything new or enter anything with any suspensions or whatnot. And I just wanted to be comfortable wherever I was at. And once I made once I set all my goals and what I wanted to do and how I wanted to fit somewhere, Ohio State checked all those boxes.
Chip, how important was it just the relationship that you had pre-existing with Ryan Day? Because I know Ryan was very involved in your recruitment when you were in high school. And now that he's running his program and you can probably feel comfortable that he's going to be there for a while, when he was taking over for you and you were being recruited, it was still sort of new and you didn't know exactly how he was going to look after the Urban Meyer era. How much of that goes into this decision?
A lot of it goes into this decision. Not even just Coach Day, but the whole staff. With me being very familiar with the whole staff and me being down in Columbus, a lot of the times when I was being recruited out of high school, just knowing the vibes and just knowing the culture of the program is something I definitely want to be a part of, and just to continue on a legacy of winning championships and winning national championships. So that's my goal as a competitor, and that's what I strive for, and that's what I wake up wanting to do every day.
Part of that recruitment too, Chip, was that Ohio State viewed you as having the higher ceiling at linebacker. You wanted to try running back, and that worked out pretty well for you over the last 2 years. I believe 10 touchdowns down there for Arizona State. So you proved that you could do that. If you're coming back to Ohio State to play linebacker, what's the thought process there? Why does that maybe strike you differently than it did 2 years ago?
Just knowing where I'm at now. I think 2 years ago I was a little bit anxious, be so ready to just give the ball up. So I kind of stick to running back. But now when I'm really on and think on it, I feel like playing linebacker there or just playing defense there in general will really elevate me, and I'll be able to take it and run with it and be able to really achieve my dreams in the NFL and then be successful at the next level after that. So.
How much of that happens as you watch what Steel Chambers did in the last year? You saw, obviously that's a guy who had about 13 minutes of training at linebacker before he got put in and played very well. And obviously that sort of athletic profile you guys share is pretty similar. Are you watching that from afar and saying, hey, I can do that?
No, honestly, no, because I didn't really watch Ohio State's defense throughout this past season, just because we had our season going on and everything here. For me, once I talked with Dan and everybody on the whole coaching staff, it was just what was the need on the team. So me as a person I am, I'm just willing to come in and compete where I'm needed and hopefully make an impact.
Did you miss Ohio?
I did miss Ohio. This weather out here is nice though, but Yeah, I missed Ohio, but my family is out here. My immediate family out here, so they love it out here. So I wasn't out here by myself.
Now, how important is it for you to just know that this kind of quest you started in high school is leading you back to a place where, I mean, if we're being honest, Chip, a lot of us thought that's where you were going to end up, right? I mean, all the crystal balls in the world had Deamonte Trayanum to Ohio State. I mean, is it kind of surreal to take a look at this process now and think about how it's all circled back?
No, it definitely is. I feel like not even just then, but now when I was going through this whole transfer process, it's just clear. It's just more clear. Sometimes it's hard to believe that everything happens for a reason and that everything comes back full circle. But it was more clear and more evident to me once I went through this transfer process. So I'm excited. I'm excited to get back home, get back working, and be wearing that scarlet gray.
One thing is for sure, we know that Deamonte Trayanum will return to Ohio State or come back to the state of Ohio as the guy with the coolest PJs in all of the world, looking sharp for Christmas. We appreciate you so much for joining us and talking about your decision. Looking forward to seeing you, covering you back here at Ohio State. Merry Christmas and thanks again.
Merry Christmas. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Chip.
Thank you.
Firm, I think you need a set of PJs like Deamonte Trayanum there.
You think I don't got them?
Oh, well, I don't know. After that taco sweater, I guess I should know better.
That's true.
Really, a refreshing perspective. You can see why Ohio State was impressed during the recruiting process and why they thought that he would be a good addition to this room. Certainly seems to understand the situation and made a really mature decision here this time to go back to linebacker where he sees himself having a better chance to get to the NFL and maybe win a national championship with Ohio State, which frankly was not going to happen at Arizona State.
Yeah, and I think, it speaks to a kid understanding the big picture. And at Ohio State right now, yeah, there may be some defensive coaches that stay the same. We still don't know exactly how that's going to play out over these next few weeks as Ohio State has to reshuffle their coaching deck a little bit with Jim Knowles coming in. But whatever coaches are staying or going, Jim Knowles' defense is going to be Jim Knowles' defense. And that means for Deamonte Trayanum, he's not anywhere behind anyone else. I mean, obviously there's going to be some core football principles that don't change, but he's going to be learning that defense at the same time the rest of the guys are. And I think that as a transfer, if you are moving from one program to another, that's the time to do it when you have basically a wide open avenue to getting on the field. And he's a really athletic kid, really explosive athlete that I think people will like the way he plays. He's a violent defensive player, and that's certainly something that Ohio State liked about him in high school at Akron Hoban. And I think that's something Buckeyes fans will really appreciate as they get to see him over the next couple of years. Yeah,
he's really, in terms of 2 years of linebacker reps, that's not going to be the same for him compared to, Cody Simon or Tommy Eichenberg or whatever. He'll have a little bit of adjustment period there. As we talked about before, he gets to go through spring practice. He's moving back across the country. He will be in Columbus by the end of the month, about the same time that Jim Knowles is set to take over when everybody gets back to join those two after the Rose Bowl. So he's got a chance here to maybe catch up quickly. And I think when you evaluate this, Ohio State wasn't necessarily going into the transfer portal thinking that it had to find a starting linebacker.
No. What it is actually, Austin, if we're looking at it from a roster perspective, this is a guy who fills the spot vacated by Craig Young. Because again, Chip is not a 6'2", 230-pound linebacker, in the traditional sense. He is a kid that can fill that bullet spot. The Buckeyes are going to play the 4-2-5 type defense still as they move forward, and he's a guy that fits in that bullet extra, hybrid safety linebacker role, whatever you want to call it. And so now that you have the bullet, you have the Jack, you have the Leo, you have got a bunch of guys out there that are all doing a lot of different things. And he's someone who can do a lot of different things, but he's not going to be called on to be a traditional linebacker, but he hits like one. And that's what the important thing is.
Yeah. And there's a lot, as you said, we've got to learn about this Jim Knowles system, and terminology will be part of that even for the media, just as it will be for the players. That we'll get to talk to them shortly after the new year, after the Rose Bowl coming up next week. Ohio State and Utah, of course, will have as much coverage as we can possibly provide you at lettermenrow.com. This has been Rapid Reaction. It is brought to you by Byers Auto. Ohio State with a new addition coming in through the transfer portal, Deamonte Trayanum. We appreciate him for joining us. And for Berm, I'm Austin Ward. Merry Christmas. We will see you all in California.